So, Dave, who do you think did everything better?
What do you mean, Ted?
Tasha or Xanathar?
Oh, for sure, Xanathar.
What? Are you kidding me? Tasha!
Xanathar!
Tasha!
Man, let's just discuss too many options from Tasha's Cauldron to everything for 5e D&D. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and as usual, I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
You won't need Tasha's Cauldron to summon D&D videos if you click that subscribe button.
But if it's more Nerdarchy videos you'll want to conjure, then attune to that notification bell.
Hey, do you not get enough Nerdarchy? Do you know we have a website, nerdarchy.com, where we put up 1 to 2 articles every single day of the week about, you guessed it, Dungeons and Dragons, sometimes other role-playing games as well. There's a link in the description where you can go check that out.
Alright, so today we're going to talk about the class optional features in Tasha's Cauldron of everything. Every class gets some new things that are either just straight up added to your core class or things that are going to be able to be swapped out. Everything is optional, so some things could be, DM specific of I'll allow this, but I won't allow that. I know there's, one that's been a point of contention at our table for a while that, I've finally been, browbeaten or, looked at enough. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to allow it. But let's start off right at the beginning with the Barbarian.
Yeah, Ted, speaking of starting off, before we jump into it, there will be a link in the description. If you haven't picked up your copy of Tasha's Cauldron to Everything over on Amazon, you can go click that link and help support the channel and also get a great book.
So I guess we'll start off right at the beginning with the Barbarian. There's 2 optional class features that you're going to be able to get. All right, so at 3rd level, you get the option of Primal Knowledge. So at 3rd and 10th level, you gain a proficiency and skill of your choice from the list available to a Barbarian. It, basically is going to allow your Barbarian to be a little bit more knowledgeable over the course of their Barbarian career.
At 7th level, you're also going to get a feature that is called Instinctive Pounce. As part of a bonus action you take to enter your rage, you can move up to half your speed. So Barbarians are just getting stuff for their options. I never felt like the Barbarian was lacking anything. And also, I guess it's worth pointing out that all the 12 core classes get these optional rules, but the new class, the Artificer, doesn't. So I guess they got that one perfect right out the gate.
Now, I would also say that the whole Artificer class is, listed here for those people who aren't, using the Eberron rules. So, I guess it would be kind of weird to be like, here's the full class and some optional stuff, so that might be weird. I don't have any problem with either of these abilities, I don't think. Being able to get extra movement on a very fast class anyway, or giving Barbarians access to more skills. Typically the nature-based classes, I feel, are more skill-driven, so I have no problems there.
Yeah, I mean, for the Barbarian, it's good. You're just going to get some cool stuff if your DM is allowing it. Next up, we have the Bard. Bard, you get a few things, right? The first thing that you get as a Bard is you get additional Bard spells, which all that means is spells have been added to your spell list. So when you choose your spells that you're going to have more options.
So no, I have no problems with, new spells being added. There's nothing on this list, as I look through it that I feel is not warranted. So it's definitely cool. And I like seeing, new things. But they also get the option of Magical Inspiration. If a creature has Bardic Inspiration die from you and casts a spell that restores hit points or deals damage, the creature can roll the die and choose a target affected by the spell, add the number rolled as bonus to the hit points regained or to the damage dealt, and then the inspiration die is lost. This is kind of cool. I think it definitely, is getting a little bit into the Bard of Valor, being able to add it to, magical effects, whereas, the Valor gets to add it to weapon damage. But,
I mean, everybody gets it, so it's not like it replaces that ability.
Right.
It's close to it, but it's not exactly that. So it's not too bad. I mean, you're just going to have more options to use that Bardic Inspiration than you would have had before.
You know, I look at this and I feel like this is probably going to be used for healing quite a bit. And, you know, when it's healing being done, I never have a qualm there because, you know, players always need it because the DM can always just dish out more damage. But there's also another ability called Bardic Versatility. And this is, this is interesting. Whenever you reach a level in this class that grants you an ASI, you can do one of the following, representing a change in focus as you use your skills and magic. You can replace one of your skills that you chose for extra expertise with another skill proficiency that isn't already benefiting from expertise. And you can replace one cantrip learned from this class, spellcasting feature, with another cantrip from this class. So it's another just swapping things out that you already, okay, this isn't working out the way I thought, I want to make a change. And we've already, discussed this, in an earlier video of how making these little swaps, these little changes, is something that we typically would do in our games to begin with.
Yeah, it's definitely not that big a deal. So, and again, too, you can only do it every 4 levels, essentially. You're going to be limited to that. So moving on to the Cleric. The Cleric is going to get several options. They're a spellcaster, and of course, they're going to get additional Cleric spells added to their list. Nothing new there.
We also get Harness Divine Power. You can expend the use of your channel divinity to fuel your spells. As a bonus action, you touch a holy symbol, utter a prayer, and regain 1 expended spell slot, the level of which can be no higher than half your proficiency bonus, rounded up. The number of times you can use this feature is based on the level you have reached in this class. Once it's 2nd, 6th twice, and 18th level you can do it 3 times, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So basically, if you're not using your Channel Divinity feature, you can use it to get extra spell power. I totally dig it. I love Clerics, so giving Clerics a little bit more option and make them a little bit more spellcastery definitely works for me.
It does give versatility. I will say most of the time you have better Channel Divinity options, because you can do some really cool things with Channel Divinity a lot of times.
Indeed.
So, I mean, this is another way to use it. But again, I don't think it's a big deal, like I said, because I personally believe many of the domains themselves just have better options.
So at 4th level, they get Cantrip Versatility. And this is just like the Bard's thing where you can swap out a cantrip with another Cleric cantrip whenever you get an ASI.
So Blessed Strikes, this is one you can swap out at 8th level. This is going to replace Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting feature. So you are blessed with Divine Might in battle. When a creature takes damage from one of your cantrips or weapon attacks, you can also deal a die 8 radiant damage to the creature. Once you deal that damage, you can't use this feature until the start of your next turn. So essentially, you used to choose one or the other. Now you kind of get them both combined, right? It's Potent Spellcaster used to just be your modifier. Now it's this roll of a die 8, which could be better or could be worse. And so, it's just that you don't have to choose if you're hitting them with a weapon or using a cantrip, you get to do extra damage.
This versatility here, I think, improves the Cleric overall. 8th level has always been a sore point for me with Clerics. They're close to my heart. They're my favorite character class, and I always hated the 8th level abilities. I still don't like this as much as making it, link it to a domain feature as opposed to everybody gets this blasé power. But for the most part, this is certainly an improvement.
Yeah, it's just not very exciting. So moving on to Druid, guess what? They're a spellcaster. So you guessed it, additional spells on their spell list.
They're also going to get at 2nd level a Wild Companion. You gain the ability to summon a spirit that assumes an animal form. As an action, you can expend the use of your Wild Shape feature to cast a Find Familiar spell without material components. When you cast a spell in this way, the familiar is a fae instead of a beast, and the familiar disappears after a number of hours equal to your druid.
I like and hate this ability at the same time. I agree, as a druid, you should get beast companions and have more to do with animals, so yay, cool. The part that I actually hate about it is the fact that it only lasts half your druid level in hours. I mean, you're casting a 1st level ritual spell at the expense of your Wild Shape, and Wild Shape is a really good ability. You get 2 of them per short rest, And I just feel like, would it really have killed them to be like expend wild shape and you just cast the Find Familiar spell as opposed to like this added limitation on it?
So, for your home games, if you want to do what we're going to do, we're going to remove that duration. It's not anything, game breaking to have that there. But druids are the thing, the class that should be attuned to nature the most. Wizards get a familiar, rangers can have an animal companion. Why can't druids? So, nah. Next up, Cantrip Versatility. It's exactly the same as the Cleric. You can just swap out whenever you get an ASI for, a druid cantrip for a druid cantrip.
So next is Fighter. Fighter is fun, right? Because first thing we're going to see is fighting style options. We get blind fighting, which basically we can take the blind fighting style, which is you have blind sight with a range of 10 feet. Within that range, you effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you're blinded or in darkness. Moreover, you can see an invisible creature within that range unless the creature successfully hides from you. This is something many people want it. Now we have it. What's next, Ted?
We got Interception. When a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you with an attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage the target takes by 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus to a minimum of 0 damage. You must be wielding a shield or a simple martial weapon to use this reaction. So basically, it's just deflect attack, and there's definitely a lot of fighting styles that go in this direction. So having this as a style option definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah, and also, it gives you something to do with your reaction. I'm not excited about it, but I don't hate it either. Now we have Superior Technique. You learn one maneuver of your choice from among the available to the Battlemaster archetype. If the maneuver you use requires your target to make a saving throw to resist the maneuver's effect, the saving throw is DC equals 8 plus proficiency bonus plus strength or dex modifier your choice. You gain one superiority die, which is a d6. This die is added to any superior dice that you have from another source. This die is used to fuel your maneuvers. A superiority die, expand it when you use it. Yeah, you gain your expended superiority die when you finish a short or long rest. It's kind of cool. I mean, if you plan on being a Battlemaster anyway, and you want to have more dice and more maneuvers, you could start with this. And from level 1, you essentially are already going down that path.
Absolutely. You could take play a human fighter, take martial adept, take superior technique as your fighting style. So like you could already be, maneuvering to this. See what I did there?
I do see that.
And then once you get to 3rd level and you actually select the Battlemaster, you're already on your way. You're already using these fun things. And it's just going to make that character shine a little bit.
Or if you're playing something else, you have a couple cool tricks. So,
absolutely. So thrown weapon fighting. You can draw a weapon that has a thrown property as part of the attack you make with the weapon. In addition, when you hit with a ranged attack using a thrown weapon, you gain +2 bonus to the damage roll.
This is my favorite one.
I know it is. There's a lot of thrown weapon characters and character builds that, have come up through, movies and novels and what have you. And to see that, finally, many, many years after the release of 5th edition, you can actually build and play those kind of characters. It's just kind of fantastic.
Yeah, so it's cool to be added to the game finally. Next up, we have unarmed fighting. Your unarmed strikes can deal bludgeoning damage equal to a die 6 plus your strength modifier on a hit. If you aren't wielding any weapons or a shield when you make the attack roll, the d6 becomes a d8. At the start of each of your turns, you can deal die 4 bludgeoning damage to one creature grappled by you. So you want to make an unarmed combatant? Don't even think about being a monk anymore. You just want to take the unarmed fighting style and be a fighter.
I look at this one and, as much as I, typically love what Watts puts out there, I say, what are you thinking, man? You're gonna not use any weapons or a shield, and you can now punch for a D8, the equivalent of what a monk gets at 11th level? Are you flipping kidding me?
And don't forget, you can automatically just do damage when you have something grappled. Now, at the start of each of your turns, doesn't take an action, doesn't take anything. You're just crushing them.
So I'm not fond of this one. I feel like
I do like it. I just hate the fact that it just makes the monk shittier.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna gripe on. I don't like this one. I'm not gonna stop it being used in my game. But I tell you, if somebody's gonna take this in my game, I'm gonna give the monk a higher punch die, because it doesn't make sense to have the person who has not spent years training punching things to be that much worse than the dude who's like, yeah, a portion of my martial training, I punch things.
Yeah. Well, we also get martial versatility. That's at 4th level. So whenever you reach a level in this class that grants the ability score improvement feature, you can do one of the following as you shift your focus of your martial practice. Replace a fighting style for another fighting style available to fighters. Is one thing you can do. Or if you know any maneuvers from the Battle Master archetype, you can replace one maneuver with a different maneuver. So that just gives you more options, just like we discussed with like the spellcasters.
And we're not going to go into all of them, but there are new maneuver options that are in here. You want to call out any in particular you think are awesome and worth mentioning there, Dave?
Well, first of all, I mean, we can point out there's 7 of them. Mm-hmm. And let's see, we've got Quick Toss. As a bonus action, you can expend 1 superiority die and make a ranged attack with a weapon that has the thrown property. You can draw the weapon as part of making this attack. If you hit, add the superiority die to the weapon's damage roll. This one is kind of mad because, like, if you wanted to do that, you should have just taken the thrown fighting style, which is actually better than this and could have been used with a different maneuver that did the extra damage.
I like to see that, they're spreading things out, with the options. And for this one, I would call out tactical assessment. When you make an intelligence investigation, an intelligence history, or a wisdom insight check, you can expend 1 superiority die and add the superiority die to the ability check. So it's not all about the combat, which to me is giving the fighter aspect into areas of the game that they haven't really broached before. And since the Battle Master is supposed to be your tactician, this is the person who is a little bit more cerebral, or could be. I am definitely down for this one, and I could see myself, playing that thinking fighter, taking that one, which would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to see them kind of like get a little more versatility. We can go into the monk, and we're gonna get some options here, starting with dedicated weapon. At 2nd level, you train yourself to use a variety of weapons as a monk, not just simple melee weapons and short swords. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can touch a weapon, focus your key on it, and then count the weapon as a monk weapon until you use this feature. Again, the chosen weapon must meet these criteria. The weapon must be a simple or martial weapon. You must have be proficient with it, and it must lack the heavy and special properties. So here you're going to have a lot of options. Here, I think your Hobgoblin, Gith, Dwarven, and Elven monks might have a chance to really shine with some more options.
I definitely dig this. You don't have to be, a special monk, to get access to a different, monk, weapon to fight with. So I definitely like this. I got no problems with it, and it allows you to, again, tailor your culture, tailor, a monastic tradition, or a monastic order, I should say, into your world, and be like, all right, this is what we use. And, perhaps they do a special ritual, and perhaps every day, they do a ceremony over their particular, weapon, and this is what we use, and this is how we do it every day. Even though, you don't have to do it every time, but that's just how that order does it. 3rd level, you're going to get key fueled attack. If you spend 1 key point as part of your action on your turn, you can make 1 attack with an unarmed strike or a monk weapon as a bonus action before the end of your turn. So Dave and I were discussing this one, and he's like, what is this for?
Listen, Ted had to sit me down like a toddler and explain it and use really little words and talk slowly. So I'm like, I don't get it. The monk can pretty much do this all the time.
So
and he's like, Dave, you don't understand. It's the elemental monk that's screwed.
So it's, the elemental monk, or the four elements monk, definitely has a fallback on a lot of different things. We've talked about this in other videos, so we're not going to go into that discussion here. But if they use one of their key abilities to basically cast a spell or a spell-like ability, they can still make an offhand attack, which actually had just come up in our game this past Saturday. And it's like, oh no, sorry, you can't do that. And had we actually gone in depth into this book by that point in time, like, Dave, actually, but even if you go so far as to say, oh well, can I use a stunning strike, as part of my part of my attacks, as opposed to doing an offhand attack, you could be able to use a monk weapon attack with your bonus action instead. So that could allow you to benefit from a magic item or, some other thing incorporated.
Or just do more damage because you do a die 4 until like
so,
5th level.
So there are a number of things that you can use that for, and, incorporate that within, within your build as you're doing it.
Yeah, and there might be some other niche places where you can use it as well that we're just not thinking of from subclass abilities where you spend key.
Or like this next ability.
Yeah. Quicken Healing, a 4th level monk feature. As an action, you can spend 2 key points and roll a martial arts die. Gain a number of hit points equal to the number rolled plus your proficiency bonus. So I mean, now you can just get some extra healing if you want to spend your key to do it. The problem with like a lot of these, with some of these abilities for the monk, though, it's like they're just spending more key, which the problem with the monk oftentimes is that it's a resource they don't have a lot of. Wow. At 4th level, if you do this, half of your key is done if you're at full, right? So that's a thing, but it's another option.
But, if you're playing a monk and you're doing this, you could basically have, a slow form of regeneration of like, all right, I don't need to rest 8 hours. I'm just going to spend an hour, get my key back, use it all, take another short rest, get it all back, and then keep going. So that it is definitely something that could be abused if the DM allows for it. But the DM controls the pace of the game, so it's entirely up to them as to whether an encounter disturbs your rest. 5th level, they're going to get focused aim. When you miss with an attack, you can spend 1 to 3 key points to increase your attack roll by 2 for each of these key points you spend, potentially turning a miss into a hit. A lot of DMs I know just totally call out, oh, this thing has an armor class of 14. You missed by 1 and you really want to hit this turn. I spend 1 key point, I get a +2 to hit. That 14 was a 13, so, or that, the attack was a 13. I know I only missed by 1. Bam! I hit him. It's cool. It's not fantastic, but at clutch moments, I could definitely see that.
It could come in handy.
It come in handy?
Yeah, it's gonna eat through your key points even faster, but it does give you some options, so that's kind of cool. So next we're gonna go on to Paladin. They're spellcasters, folks. You know what that means. Their list gets expanded upon. I will say anything that pulls from the Druid or the Paladin spell list and gives it to other classes, I don't like. One of the things I really liked about 5e was when I was reading through the spells, like there are so many spells that you're like, oh yeah, this is a ranger spell, this is a paladin spell, and I like the fact that they were unique to those classes.
Yeah, I mean that is a challenge, but it's there. So 2nd level, they're also going to get some fighting style options. We already talked about blind fighting and interception, but there's also Blessed Warrior, which is another Paladin unique fighting style. I know Dave snickers because it's not fabulous. There's definitely better ways to get this. But you learn 2 cantrips of your choice from the Cleric spell list. They count as Paladin spells for you, and Charisma is their spellcasting ability for them. Whenever you gain a level in this class, you can replace one of these cantrips with another cantrip from your Cleric list. So, like, if you totally were not concerned with doing combat-y things because you're Paladin and you're probably swinging your weapon, you could totally get Spare the Dying and, Guidance and be able to use those spells in, the moments where those things matter, and you don't have the more martial fighting style. Not a big deal.
I'm actually snickering because it's listed under fighting styles, and there has nothing to do with fighting. I mean, I guess there's some cantrips you could take that are combat oriented, but for the most part, it doesn't really have to do with fighting, so it's kind of funny. Third level, you're going to get another Channel Divinity option. You're going to get the Harness Divine Power, which we discussed under the Cleric.
So fourth level, we get Martial Versatility, and this sounds exactly like it is with what the fighter has. So when you get an ASI, you can swap out a fighting style available to Paladins, and it just is a shift to show your martial focus.
All right. Next up is the Ranger. I almost feel like this could have just been its own video.
All right. So
because they really, with all the optional features here, it kind of just replaces the Ranger, really. Like Deft Explorer is the first level feature that you can access, but it replaces Nature's Explorer feature. So we're gonna see that, and you're gonna get abilities at 1st, 6th, and 10th level. Starting with first is Canny. Choose one skill proficiency. Your skill proficiencies, your proficient bonus is doubled in any ability check made to use that chosen skill. Oh, it's choose one skill proficiency. I'm sorry. And then, basically you're going to get expertise in it. It's not worded as expertise, but essentially that's what it is. And that also pushes the Ranger up to the Rogue when it comes to skills. Almost, Rogue still gets some tools. You can also speak, read, write 2 additional languages of your choice, which I guess, if you say tools and languages are equivalent, then it kind of does push you up to the level of the Rogue. Roving is our 6th level ability. Your walking speed increases by 5, and you gain climbing speed and swimming speed equal to your walking speed. I mean, that's useful. That's cool. You're faster, more mobile, and, although it may not come up too often, a swim speed can be quite clutch.
Yeah, that aspect right there is kind of huge if it's going to come up in your game. It's meaningless if it doesn't, but as Dave says, it can be super clutch.
So, Tireless 10th level, as an action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to a D8 plus your Wisdom modifier. Minimum of 1. You can use this action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all your expended uses when you finish a long rest. So basically, it just makes you a bit tankier, which is great for the Ranger because they don't wear heavy armor.
But wait.
So that's really cool. But there's more. In addition, whenever you finish a short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, is decreased by 1. Now,
holy crap!
Is that tacked on to the end of all the abilities, or is that just the 10th level ability?
That's a 10th level ability. Yeah, that's.
So, I mean, that's really good. Exhaustion's hard to get rid of. It doesn't come up that often in games, but when it does,
yes,
it really sucks.
And there, all right. So, exhaustion is one of those things that's super, super powerful in the game. With Rime of the Frost Maiden just coming out, there's definitely the scenario of cold affecting exhaustion levels, and with the classes in the game, there's nothing that removes exhaustion via class powers. It's just 1 per long rest. So if you've collected multiple, all right, well, we're just gonna have to wait several days. So Rage is like, nah man, I got this, I can just shake this off like nothing. One exhaustion level for a short rest, which is an hour, they could be like, I'm this close to dying, like, I'll be good in the morning. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, the secret to being a Berserker Barbarian now is 10 levels of Ranger, clearly.
But we also have another thing at 1st level, Favored Foe, which replaces the Favored Enemy feature and works with the Foe Slayer. When you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can call on your mystical bond with nature to mark the target as your favorite enemy for 1 minute or until you lose your concentration, as if you were concentrating on a spell. The first time on each of your turns that you hit the favorite enemy and deal damage to it, including when you mark it, you can increase the damage by 1d4. You can use this feature to mark favorite enemy a number of times to equal your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The feature's extra damage increases when you reach certain levels in this class, 1d6 at 6th, 1d8 at 14th. So it's like a minor Hunter's Mark. Doesn't require a spell slot. So not fabulous, but
you can't move it. So I probably wouldn't take this feature. I would probably just keep the favorite enemy feature and get the bonus languages and be better with perception and survival when I'm dealing with my favorite enemies, as opposed to this and just keep casting Hunter's Mark. That's my opinion. But it's there if you want it, if your DM allows it. So additionally, second level, we're a spellcaster, we're a ranger, so that means we're gonna get some more spells thrown on there.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, more versatility.
It's some cleric and some druid stuff mixed in. Holy crap, they get revivify. I wouldn't necessarily say that's a rangery thing to do, but if you want to allow it,
it is now.
If you want to allow it in your game, it's there. Second level is also when rangers get their fighting style, and we have a new fighting style, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's basically like the Blessed Warrior. You get 2 druid cantrips, and you can swap them out, as you would. So, yeah.
You also get access to blind fighting and thrown weapon fighting, all of which makes sense for the ranger. The other second level feature you gain is you just can use a druidic focus now to cast your spells, as opposed to having to use spell components. Yeah, it's like that's neither here nor there. The next one I think is a big deal.
So third level, you get Primal Awareness, which replaces the Primeval Awareness feature. You can focus your awareness through the interconnections of nature, and you learn additional spells when you reach certain levels in this class if you don't already know them, as shown on the Primal Awareness spells table. These spells don't count against the number of ranger spells you know. At third, you got Speak with Animals, 5th, Beast Sense, 9th, Speak with Plants, 13th, Locate Creature, and 17th, Commune with Nature. So you just basically learn new spells. They're always added, they're always accessible. That's
not only that, Ted, you also get to cast each one of them once without expending a spell slot. It's a big deal. This is way better than Primeval Awareness, in my opinion. Primeval Awareness lets you sense different things in a particular area even further if it's your favorite terrain. I think this is going to be more versatile, more useful. I would probably go with this over that.
I love this feature, and it absolutely has the ranger aspects of being able to, act like an animal, sense things in nature, communicate with plants and animals. This is, making them more of the wilderness warrior that I expect rangers to be.
So we're also going to get martial versatility. It's exactly the same as the other ones. And then 10th level, we get Nature's Veil. 10th level ranger feature, which replaces hide in plain sight feature. You draw on powers of nature to hide yourself from view briefly. As a bonus action, you can magically become invisible. Along with the equipment you're wearing or carrying until the start of your next turn. You can use this feature a number of times, equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So, you're not getting it until 10th level. So what is that? Is that a +4 at that point? So 4 times a day. That's a decent amount. I think hide in plain sight required a lot of time to set up. So it was never going to be used in a combat situation or if you didn't have time to prep for something. So I feel like rangers are probably going to find this a bit more useful.
But speaking of something else that the rangers are going to find more useful, there's a whole section on Beastmaster companions. As we stated at the beginning of this whole ranger section, a lot of what is here is feel like, how can we fix the ranger? Because it is something that a lot of people have issued complaints about, and it does appear that Wizards has heard the complaints and are looking to balance the scales, if you will. And then as opposed to summoning a specific beast, you can conjure a beast of the land, of the sea, or of the sky, and they have different ability stats and what have you based off of that. So they're a little bit better. We don't need to get into the details.
There's a couple important things to pull out. One, you don't share actions the same way you did before. So you command your beast as a bonus action, then it can take its actions. You can swap your attacks and give them to the beast. So depending on whether you want to do it or you want the beast to do it, that's really good. Your beasts scale better than they did before based off of either your proficiency bonus or your level, depending on what specific thing. You can kind of tailor them and make them appear however you want. But you have options, and now your beasts are much cooler than they were before, and they have a more high. They are more highly likely to survive. I mean, now a beast companion will start with 16 or 20 hit points as opposed to 12 that it had before, and it keeps scaling from there. So that is better.
So moving on to the rogue, there's literally a single option here, and this is the one that I was kind of, griping about before, and I finally. I'm allowing it in my game. Dave, I'm certain is going to, smile. He's probably not going to jump for joy. That's not really his forte. But they get steady aim. As a bonus action, you give yourself advantage on your next attack roll on your current turn. You can use a bonus action only if you haven't moved during this turn, and after you use the bonus action, your speed is 0 until the end of your current turn. So your ranged combatants are always going to be at advantage. Thus
maybe. I mean, there is a caveat. You can't move and you can't have moved. So there's definitely going to be circumstances where you're just not going to be able to use this.
I mean, and those things come up. We talk about how the swashbuckler always has advantage or always has the ability to sneak. And, I've personally been a swashbuckler who hasn't been able to sneak because you can't get into melee combat. You don't have advantage. So you have to use a ranged weapon, and therefore no sneak.
And you don't have an ally next to them, so it happens. So next up is the Sorcerer. Guess what? They're spellcasters. You know what that means.
More spells!
More spells on their spell list.
Third level, they're going to get meta magic options. We get 2 new options, that you can be able to choose from. Seeking spell. If you make an attack roll for a spell and miss, you can spend 2 sorcery points and re-roll the d20. You have to use the new one. As well as transmuted spell. When you cast a spell that deals damage of a damage type from the following list, you can spend 1 sorcery point and change that damage type to one other listed: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder.
These are both cool abilities. I'm digging. They're just useful, just more options for your sorcerer. Sorcerer's versatility. This is the same as it's been for all the other ones. The only real difference is it's going to affect our meta magics, and it is going to affect our cantrips.
5th level magical guidance. You can tap into your inner wellspring of magic to try and conjure success from failure. When you make an ability check that fails, you can spend 1 sorcery point to reroll your d20, and you must use the new roll, potentially turning failure into success.
Feels like this one steps on the chaos sorcerer's toes a bit.
A little bit. I'm not gonna gripe, too hard, but
yeah.
That last ability. Yes. The other stuff, I dig.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I allow it, but poor Chaos Mage. All right. Warlock. We're going to get some things. Did I mention it's a spellcaster, so we get an expanded spell list? But we're also going to get a new Pact boon. So that's kind of cool. Pact of the Talisman. Your patron gives you an amulet or a talisman that you can aid the wearer when the need is great. When the wearer fails an ability check, they can add a d4 to the roll, potentially turning the roll into a success. The benefit can be used a number of times equals a proficiency bonus. All expended uses are restored when you finish a long rest. If you lose the talisman, you perform a 1-hour ceremony, receive a replacement from the patron. This ceremony can be performed during a short or long rest, and it destroys the previous amulet. The talisman turns to ash when you die.
So I really like the Pact of the Talisman. I definitely would be interested in making a Warlock in that direction. I've been waiting for some new packs because we've only had the 3. While there's lots of patrons, there's not a whole lot of different packs, and that's something that I think the Warlock it's enjoyable to play because there's so many more interesting combinations that you can go. 4th level, they get Eldritch Versatility. And here you can swap out your Warlock cantrips, replace your Pact Boon feature, or, if you've reached 12th level or higher, you can swap out your Mystic Arcanum for something else, as long as it's the same level. So I dig, all of the versatility options, because it's just allowing you to tailor your character. You're also going to get a number of Eldritch Invocation options. Looks like there's 8 new choices, and we're not going to read all of them. I'll read, my favorite, and if Dave wants to call out his, we can go that direction as well. But Far Scribe, it's prerequisite 5th level, and you need to have Pact of the Tome. A new page appears in your Book of Shadows. With permission, a creature can use its action to write its name on that page, which contains a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus. You can cast the sending spell targeting a creature whose name is on the page without using a spell slot, without using any material components. To do so, you write a message on the page. The target hears the message in their mind, and if the target replies, the message appears on the page rather than in your mind. The writing disappears after a minute. As an action, you can magically erase a name on the page just by touching it. Oh man, I love this.
I mean, there's a couple that I kind of dig on. Eldritch Mind's really short, and it just, you have advantage on Constitution saving throws that you can make to maintain concentration spells, which is great for a caster. Undying Servitude, I'm digging it too. I like any of these because this one, 5th level prereq, you can cast Animate Dead without using a spell slot. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. Adding extra casting to the Warlock to me is awesome because they don't get that much.
My only issue, with that one and that style is, I would want to replace it with the following wording. You learn the spell Animate Dead. You can cast it once without using a spell slot. And then you have to wait, you have to finish a long rest until you can cast it for free. Why is it so hard to just, give them that extra spell? They have so limited spell slots, and they are constantly just, nickel and diming it, so often. There's been so many things in the Unearthed Arcana and whatever else that are like, oh, we're going to go in this direction, but not the Warlock. And I'm like,
Because you're a Warlock, Ted. You're supposed to Eldritch Blast. That's what you do. Say it.
Eldritch Blast.
All right. Finally, we've got the Wizard expanded spell list. Awesome. And then 3rd level, we get a new feature, which is Cantrip Formulas. You have scribed a set of arcane formulas in your spellbook that you can use to formulate a cantrip in your mind. Whenever you finish a long rest and consult those formulas in your spellbook, you can replace one wizard cantrip with another cantrip from the wizard spell list. So basically, once you can swap out your cantrips.
So, they are like, well, we are the ultimate casters. We don't need to wait to get to, 4th level again, NASI. We just need to consult our spellbook and swap things out. I think that totally makes sense with the way that wizards, the way wizards function. I think this has been a long time coming. So I definitely dig that aspect of it. So.
Yeah, and the wizard's supposed to be the ultimate versatile caster. And every time they do things to make other casters more versatile, it really starts honing in on the wizard's territory, right? So by doing this, they're reclaiming some of their own. They're taking it back. I'm for it. I'm digging it. So, again, I'm just going to reiterate, these are all optional. You don't have to allow them into your game. If you're a player, you have to ask your dungeon master, are you adding these into your game or not? But all in all, I think it's really good. They've done some cool things like, fix the ranger, and then other things. It's just like, I don't know, power creep in the game. I don't understand why some of the changes are there. Most of them aren't too crazy. Anything where it's just more options, it's not a big deal.
All right,
most of the times.
Let me ask this. Is there anything that is in, the book that you would say, I'm not really happy with? I know, you kind of, complained to me. I'll put the air quotes up there about, not letting in, the aiming feature. But is there anything that you wouldn't allow in your games? Is there anything that you feel like has gone too far?
No, not really. I mean, the only thing is like with each book, we're getting a little bit more than we had before, not just in options, but in power sometimes. So it's like, well, what happens after the book after this or the book after that? Are we really slowly but surely creeping towards?
Well, I mean, the only direction, and I can see having these things listed as optional things, the next book could very well, the next optional thing could very well be like, oh, well, if you don't choose this, you could choose that.
Yeah.
So it specifically calls out, you can't have both. Some people want chocolate and vanilla, but sometimes that's not possible. I'm in the same boat. I like what's here. Some things do make me question, I will allow all the stuff that's in this, in my game. There's some things that I feel definitely fix some short-sighted issues for certain classes. The only thing, like my biggest complaint, is that one fighting style that, that steps on the monk's toes. I think that is just over the top. That whole section of a D8, absolutely not. I would give you the D4, equivalent to Tavern Brawler, and then, you could be like, oh, if you really want to be generous, go ahead and have it scale like a monk. But that's as far as I would go. But, whatever. It's not that big a deal to allow people to do a little bit more damage if you want to just punch things.
Yeah, I mean, Tavern Brawler does become a lot less useful with that fighting style. I mean, you still get some benefits from it. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let us know. You want to see us talk about even more from Tasha's Cauldron to everything, then you can check out Is This the Death of the D&D Race? So Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It's up here somewhere.
And if it's more D&D options that you're after, over on Patreon, we're making 5e content for players and DMs alike every month.
But that's not all. We have monthly fan games. We have giveaways our patrons are automatically entered in, and more.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.